What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video that's going to kind of continue this series, particularly if you've seen some of my videos on most recently on what is a mutual fund and other types of accounts, and also the rule of 72 I threw in there. This is going to be a continuation of that into contrasting and comparing medium term accounts along with the debt spiral that I think most of us have found ourselves in one way or another. And I'm going to teach you kind of how to avoid that. So let us get started with the outline. And I'm going to go over medium term accounts. These are going to be defined as different than short term accounts, which are emergency funds, versus long term accounts, which are retirement funds. So this is going to be kind of one of those literally in the middle, in the medium side. I'm going to go over what the purpose of one is. I'm going to go over the pay yourself first rule. If you have heard this before, fantastic. You will have a leg up. If not, I'm going to show you why this is important. And at the end, I'm going to compare and contrast the debt versus the medium term account and then see which one you would choose if you had the choice. So let us get into it. So, the purpose, some people look at medium term accounts, 5 to 7 to 10 year plan of maybe making a large down payment on a home. A lot of clients that I sit down with live paycheck to paycheck. So they're a couple $100 at the end of the month, or maybe if they're lucky, 1,000 at the end of the month, isn't going to qualify for a 5% down payment on a home that costs 200 grand. So they want to save up for a down payment on a home. You've probably heard a lot of people do this. You probably done yourself as well. Some people like international travel. This is not getting any cheaper. This is actually getting more expensive. So saving up for their international vacation to the Greek islands. I don't know where people go. I was just in the Philippines recently, and I like budgeting for my trips, but I also like having the money to spend accordingly. So I don't mind saving up and investing for in a medium term account just to travel internationally and live it up a little bit. Can't work all the time. It's going to burn you out eventually. Some people use this concept as a hedge against inflation. And usually it's the historical inflation, 2 to 3 to 4%, not the clown inflation that we've had over the past couple of years. It seems like growth funds are the only thing that can really hedge against true clown inflation that we've seen. But this is another example of how to use a medium term account. Some people I've seen, and clients especially, want to take their family on a cruise for 7 days around the Caribbean, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's your family, you love them, you want to do something fun and spend some time with them. That's a good way to do it, but it isn't cheap. You can make it cheap, but you probably wouldn't enjoy it if you did. So, saving a little bit for a few years to make this happen is definitely within the realm of what this would be used for. However, I'm going to go into the last one that I'm going to use there in yellow because this, in contrast to the other four that you see listed there, auto purchases are something we've done at least once, twice, maybe even three or more times in our lifetime. It's probably something we're going to do once, twice, or three or more times going forward. We live in, if you're in the suburbia area and the concrete jungle, even of the cities that have bad public transportation, particularly smaller cities in the South, you need a car. It's a necessity in order to really engage in the societal things that we want to engage in. Going to work, which is one of them, and go to the grocery store is the second. So I'm going to use the medium term account to show you how you can contrast it with the norm of what you do, which is you go dealership and pay those ridiculous interest rates, or you go to a bank or credit union and get a loan. So let's look at what that looks like. The auto debt spiral of death at a credit union. Say you want to finance a $30,000 vehicle. And if you even got the most generous, I tried to knock it down as low as I could, 5.07 interest rate loan at a credit union, which is pretty good compared to the people that I speak to. Most of them have auto loans, sometimes 2 and 3 with wife and children, 7, 9, 12% at a credit union and a bank. They are spiraling up, up, up. You'd still pay 425 a month in order to pay off that $30,000 vehicle in 7 years or 84 months. And at the end of that 7 years and 84 months, you'd have paid 35.7 thousand for a vehicle that only costs 30,000, and you have zero liquid assets at the end because you've pumped that 425 a month into the credit union. And obviously, the whole 425 doesn't go to pay down the car. Part of it goes to principal, part of it goes to interest. What you're doing in interest rates that you see there, when you do that, you're basically paying rent on the 30 grand that the credit union had to give you. So I love when people say, I don't rent, I own my home, blah, blah. No, you're renting because you have all these other debt spiral certificates, and you're renting the money that you're getting up front from the institutions that have them, which are banks and credit unions. So let's look at a different way to go about this. And as we go forward and look, pay yourself first. This is a concept I've been teaching clients for years. We always pay our bills and our credit cards and the debt at the end. Then we have a couple $100 left at the end of the paycheck cycle for 2 weeks. And then we figure that that's what's going to be left over. But if you think about paying yourself first, and then everybody else will get theirs afterwards, you change the trajectory and you change your mindset on how you're going about your finances. This is a behavioral thing. So one, identify a line item in your budget. Two, pay yourself a monthly car payment and what I call into an equity and income fund. My last few videos have done a deep dive into an equity and income fund specifically around since 1961 that has averaged 9.8% rate of return. Now, I've showed you what happens when you just let your money sit there and compound. You get $1 million or $2 million just by putting it in there and leaving it there. But when you're paying it and putting money into it on a monthly basis, it's not only compounding what you have in there, but it's compounding the growth that you're actually investing into it on a monthly basis. So look at something from this side where you're paying yourself a monthly car payment, whether you have a car or not, whether you have a car payment or not, I should say. And the beauty of it is these car payments are actually okay to skip since you're paying yourself first. The equity and income fund and the mutual fund company isn't going to come knocking on your door when you don't pay $425 in November and December because you want to travel for Thanksgiving or get Christmas presents. It's your equity and income fund. You could put money into it during the month. You could not put money into it during the month. They're your assets. You own it. And I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with a client who are paying $425 a month or more on a car. And I'm trying to show them this. I said, well, would you skip a car payment when you have a loan at the bank? And they're like, oh, absolutely not. No, I can't do that. My credit score would drop and they'd repossess my car. So it's fear that keeps you actually paying the credit union and the bank the $425 a month, either fear of loss where they repo your car or fear of this magical credit score dropping, which would prevent you from what? Getting another $30,000 loan a few years down the road. So think of it in the mindset of that. If you're going to have a car anyway, and you're going to have to pay on a monthly basis, pay yourself instead. And I'll show you how that's going to work out from a numbers standpoint. So the question then comes down to is how much automobile can you afford? Well, let's say you can afford $250 a month. That'll get you a Chevy Spark or a Nissan Verta, not the sexiest options for cars, but it gets you from point A to point B. But let's say you have a lifestyle sweet tooth and you want to up it to $425 a month because you can afford that. Well, then at that point, if you want to really, show your friends off, you can lease a BMW X1 or a Cadillac XT4. And then when you buy out at lease end, you'll be upside down on it anyway, but who cares? For a few years, you get to drive with a full warranty on a brand new car, and no one has to know whether you lease it or not. And I have seen some clients with $750 a month that they're paying on a friggin' Honda Pilot because they have, two young kids at home that they're driving a soccer practice and they have to load up the SUV. And a Honda Pilot's, I guess, a decent SUV size-wise and for what you get out of it. Hondas last forever on the road if you've ever driven one. But they're paying $750 a month or more. At that point, you might as well just lease an Audi or a Mercedes, and then you could really drive around showing your friends what you're into. But we're going to go the middle road here. We're going to go the $425 a month road because that's really what I see on average. Middle America, they make 40, 50 grand a year. That's around 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12% of their income, $425 a month. And let's say you're starting at zero. You have $0 in this equity and income fund, which has a historical track record of averaging a 9.8% rate of return. So you're throwing your money into it right off the bat, and your $250 a month goes in. At the end of 3 years, you'll have 10 grand. At the end of 5 years, you'll have almost 20 grand. And at the end of 7 years, you'll have about 30 grand. Not bad for just throwing $250 a month in if you're on the Nissan Verta or Chevrolet Spark end of the car spectrum. If you up it a little bit, 3, 5, 7 years, you'll get 17 grand, 33 grand, and then 51 grand. And I highlighted that one in red and pink because that's the one we're going to use as an example. And if you got really expensive taste, $750 a month after 3, 5, and 7 years will get you 31 grand, 58 grand, and 90 grand at the end of 7 years. So let's aim for the middle one. You got $0 in your equity and income fund, and you're going to pay yourself a car payment starting today for $425 a month. And at the end of the 7 years, you're going to have 51 grand plus. And at 7 years of driving your used beat up car that you didn't feel like financing at the credit union for another one, but you just kept diligently ran it into the ground for 7 years, and you want to upgrade your car, well, you've earned it at this point, because look how much money you've actually accumulated by investing in yourself and paying yourself first a car payment of $425 a month. Out of that 51 grand, let's buy a $30,000 car. See what happens. You liquidate your shares in your equity and income fund to the tune of 30,000. You had 51,000 in there, so when you subtract 30,000 out of it, you still have 21,000 left in your mutual fund account. That 30,000 ends up transferring to your bank or your credit union in 2 to 3 business days. And then you could go to the dealership, find your car that you want, and tell them, this is the car I want. I'll be back in 2 to 3 days with a certified bank check or a certified check from my credit union for 30 grand, and I will pay for it in cash. And therefore you don't own a nickel to the car dealership in a finance payment, in a very bad option that's going to be upside down the moment you drive off that lot. And you don't own a nickel to the credit union, because these are your assets that you took and liquidated and actually paid cash for the entire new car. What can you get for 30 grand? 2024 Honda Accord. Like I said, Hondas last forever. Chevrolet Equinox, if you want to go that route. If you want to go the Hyundai Elantra, you can buy one of those. And if you're an SUV type person, you can try the Toyota RAV4 if you want to end up on the Japanese route. But the car's yours. And if you have a brand new car starting today, let's say, because you just paid 30 grand for it, run it for 7 years, because you got 21 grand left in your mutual fund account. What does that look like now? We're not starting from zero anymore. We're starting with 21 grand now, and you have a brand new Hyundai Elantra, and you're going to run it for 7 years. You take care of it. Don't, miss oil changes and all that stupid shit that goes on with some people that just abuse their cars. You got this thing for 7 years, but you're still paying yourself a $425 car payment a month to yourself in the mutual fund that now has 21,000 in it. In 3 years, it'll have 46,000. In 5 years, you're still paying yourself every month $425. It's going to have 67,000 in it. By the time 7 years goes around and you're ready to upgrade that Elantra because you're tired of driving in a Hyundai, you've got 93 grand in your auto fund mutual account, your equity and income fund. All right. So after 7 years of doing this, do you think you can upgrade your car a little bit? Let's go for it. Now buy a $50,000 car instead. Liquidate your shares. You had 93 grand in there. Liquidate your shares to the tune of 50 grand. It hits you liquidate it from your brokerage account. It hits your bank account in 2 to 3 business days. You find your $50,000 car, go back to the bank or the credit union and get a certified check. And when you do that, you pay for what? You could buy a Mercedes-Benz 300 sedan. You could buy a Volvo S60. You can get a Lexus IS 300 Sport if you want. Or if you're a truck guy, try a GMC Sierra 1500. 50 grand, certified bank check, hand it to the dealership, and you still have 43 grand left in your mutual fund account with your equity and income fund that's averaging a 9.8% rate of return. So now you got 7 years to drive a Lexus IS 300 Sport. Fantastic. Now you're starting out with 43,861 in your auto fund account, your equity and income fund account. Keep paying yourself $425 a month, even though you just bought a new car for 50 grand. What's going to happen? 3 years, you'll have 76 grand. 5 years, you'll have 104 grand. 7 years, you'll have 138 grand. Think you could upgrade your lifestyle in your car at this point? You just have a brand new Lexus that you drove for 7 years. Maybe after 7 years, you're really tired of it because the gas is guzzling and you don't want to deal with it anymore. Maybe replacement parts are through the roof. Who knows? When you get more expensive cars, you get more expensive problems. Usually, if you're asking when Lambo, well, this isn't Lambo territory. You're going to need the 900,000 to $1 million to 2 million range for that. But what you're doing is you're setting yourself up not to go into that death spiral, and you're paying yourself first and getting yourself liquid assets. You want to upgrade your car and buy a $70,000 car now? Be my guest. Liquidate shares. They're yours. So you have 138 grand in there after 7 years. Liquidate 70 grand. You still have 68 grand left in your mutual fund account. You can get an Infiniti QX60. You can get an Audi S5 Prestige, Maserati Modena's Q4 if you want, or a Dodge Ram 3500 Bighorn if you're a truck guy. And that could probably double as an apartment because that thing is like aircraft carrier size. So again, you're cutting the check with your own liquid assets because you paid yourself your own car payment rather than paying the bank, rather than paying the credit union, rather than paying the auto dealership. So let's compare and contrast the two. All right. You were paying for yourself 425 a month at 9.8% rate of return into a mutual fund. In contrast to the normies that pay 425 a month to a credit union at a 5.07% interest on their loan, which is actually not a bad interest rate if you can get it competitive enough at a credit union. But still, you're paying for 84 months for 7 years in both of them. But on the left side, as that first go around we saw when we did that and started from zero, we ended up with 51,000 in liquid assets. That's our car fund. It's a line item in our budget. That's what we're actually going to do with it when the time comes to get a new car. Where on the right side, because you got the loan, you paid 35,700 for a car that only cost 30 grand, and only you financed it for 30 grand. And on the left side, as you saw, we built to over 138,000 in liquid assets, and you improve your car and your lifestyle every 7 years by doing so. Don't owe a nickel or a debt to anybody. Where on the right side, you actually have 0%, $0 in liquid assets. And every 7 years, you can only afford a car that fits into your 425 a month budget. So about 10 years ago, a 425 a month budget may have got you an Infiniti G37. Nowadays, a 425, 30,000 will get you, I don't know. I don't even know what it'll get, like a Nissan Verta, maybe. I'm not even sure where 425 a month would get you. On a lease, you could get a nice car, but you're upside down anyway. Financing the car, it drops the moment you drive off the lot. But if you own the asset and you can pay for it in cash outright by paying yourself first, you end up avoiding that debt spiral and that death spiral that comes with the territory of taking out loans for an automobile. Now, which path would you rather choose? Study this video, soak in the concepts, think about your next steps to avoid this debt spiral. You want to execute that plan, pay yourself first, put a line item in your budget, and it doesn't have to be 425, it doesn't have to be 250. It could be whatever you decide it's going to be. But just stick with it month after month after month. And if you feel like skipping a month because Christmas presents, skip a month. You feel like skipping a month because May is your wife's birthday, you want to do something nice for her, skip a month there. You don't have that luxury when you have a loan without there being some financial consequences. When you're paying yourself first, you don't have to worry about that type of stuff. And remember, I'm rooting for all of you. See you all at the top. Giant hugs.